Sykes.
Hi, Carl.
Bill is renowned for being able to work with baseball cards, to work within this industrious environment. Probably steals things from little kids coming in.
No.
Bye-bye, go on down so we can see you. Hey, Jeremy, wave to us. Hey there, Tiger. Where's your brother? Go on down, Bri. Okay.
Or not there, you know. But,
Hey, Rick. Judy and Don, you need to say hello. We have to, it's Mom and Dad together, so we have to get them. Yeah, see, I'm recording right now. Yeah, you can. We'll be able to hear this, and we can say, here's Tony and Karen, new additions to the department. Rick and Jan. Okay, now, Rick and Jan and Rick, nice to see you here today. What a wonderful occasion. Excuse me, we have to come in and see Sarah. Hi, Sarah. How you doing?
Sledding with you next year.
Okay, you can come next year. We'll stop and pick you up. Come on, Dennis. Now quit stuffing your face, eh? But nice to see you. Pepper, watching Sarah.
so I said, well,
Kathy, she'll be babysitting for you pretty soon.
Good, that sounds good.
Oh, that's right. We don't want the pacifier in there. Jennifer, turn around. Hi, Sarah. How are you? Oh, look. Here's a close-up. All the way in. Mom was president of the college. Dr. Armstead. There's Rick and Jan K again. We get to see them one more panoramic view before we bring them into the dining room area. Come up along here, Jennifer, Rick, Tom and Jan K. And Judy over in the background there, if we can see them. Ruth Sanford. Mr. Sykes again with Don. Nice young couple.
I want to honor a friend, a colleague, Richard Rung, who served for Wheaton for 28 years faithfully teaching, and we want to have a good time tonight. We're going to talk a little bit. We're going to try to reflect a little bit on his life. Most of all, we just want to enjoy each other's company, have some fun and fellowship, and in the process, however, celebrate his many years of ministry on Wheaton's campus. And I think before I say grace, what I would like all of us to do is to sing the doxology. Would you join me in that?
Pan around the room a little bit and get a flavor of the whole group that's here. And we'll just take a little bit of a close-up. See who we can see up here. Mom and Dad. President. Chuck Kelstead.
Some of you know that our colleague, Professor Rung, has been a friend of many dignitaries. And I'm just deeply touched by a Western Union telegram that we just received here. Richard Nixon. If I could just, maybe. If I could read this telegram. Dear Richard, as you retire from Wheaton College, I want to again pay tribute to your work as an educator, teacher, and political activist. As you know, there are a lot of believers and thinkers, but few doers. Nick, you're a thinker and a doer and leave a distinguished legacy of which I am proud. I shall always be grateful for your strong support for me in the 1968 election. The stakes were clear. Liberalism versus realism, appeasement versus principled pragmatism. Through your efforts in the greater Chicago area, we were successful in establishing the Evangelicals for Nixon movement and in securing Billy Graham's endorsement. As you know, Billy's support proved to be decisive and that it helped deliver the fundamentalist and evangelical vote and therefore ensured my 1968 victory over Humphrey. As appreciative as I am for your support in 1968, I will attempt to arrange a place in heaven for you standing by me through Watergate. While others doubted my innocence, you never did. In thanks, I have contacted my friends at Walmart to send one cloth coat for your white dog and a dog, appropriately named Checkers, for your grandchildren. Remember, you can purchase anything at Walmart. May your retirement be fulfilling and rewarding as you continue to fight for those values and ideals that have jointly inspired us in the past. Sincerely, Richard Nixon.
Brian Michael.
Hay was also invited. He was kind enough to send a telegram this afternoon. I'd like to read the contents of the telegram from former Secretary of State Al Haig. Dear Dick, a Wheaton alumnus here in Washington recently told me that you were retiring in the near future. As you leave the world of academic life, I want to wish you much happiness as you chart new waters. And at this key moment in your life, I want to again express my gratitude for your deep and abiding support for me while serving as Secretary of State. You were one of the few religious educators who helped pave the way for a new, just foreign policy, one that declared war on godless communism and provided support for freedom fighters worldwide. And for that, I shall always be grateful. And I know you were standing beside me when I took charge after the shooting of President Nixon. All the best to you and your wife. Sincerely, Alexander Haig, Washington, D.C. We've also gotten many other letters from dignitary students and faculty, and I've asked two of my colleagues, Bud Kalstead and Karen Jones, if you would share some of these letters with us this evening.
Dear Dick, on behalf of all the retired folks, I'm glad to welcome you to the not so exclusive anymore club of those who are chronologically gifted. This is a portion of a letter from Henry and Mildred Nelson and Kathy. We have numerous other letters, some of which we'll share, and we'll turn to Karen for our next letter.
This is from Ashley Woodowitz, and most of you will know Ashley's in Romania now, so couldn't make it tonight. He says, a letter for Dick Rung. It's a bit poignant for me to offer some thoughts about Dick, for my coming to Wheaton has been construed in some ways as heralding his retirement. Only my sudden departure this year has kept him around for another year, which he graciously accepted, but could reasonably be understood to have resented. This man had put in his time. What was this young puppy doing making a mess of his and his family's plans? So, Dick, from far away, I offer my congratulations and once again apologies. With but one working year's relationship with Dick, I'm hardly qualified to offer much more substantive insights into this man than is already or will be offered by those with more history. So what I can share is the result of impressions gleaned from chance conversations around the coffee pot, a departmental meeting, or the occasional office drop-in. And I'll tell you something at once, Dick Rung is a character. I mean that in both the light-hearted and deadly earnest sense of the word. That his is a joyful burden one can tell after the briefest moments spent in his presence. The play, the tease, the smile, and most of all, the light in his eyes. Men of God do not wear gray. But in, around, and behind the play is a character deep and rich. Had I had more time with this good man, I would be able to better capture just how this depth and richness has been worked out over the years. But what I've witnessed is the conviction, the compassion, and combativeness of a man who has given himself to the truth. It may strike us as odd to conceive combativeness as a virtue and as one worthy of public praise. We are much more comfortable in the presence of conviction mingled with compassion. A C.C. more than Augustine seems to better fit into our contemporary sensibilities, despite our claims to evangelical muscular Christianity. I count Dick to be more in the company of the latter, and despite all my Anglican leanings, more in the company I prefer. I may not always agree with Dick, though I do more often than not, but he is a delight to wrestle, and afterwards the sweat has been honestly earned. Give me this any day over those who would avoid combat at all costs in order to preserve the veneer of sociability. Dick is a man, and a man of God. Ah, don't leave, Dick. We need you. Just tell me you're going for a walk, and we'll be back in a moment. After all, who's going to housebreak this puppy? Your far-off prodigal sends his love, Ashley.
Dick, we got letters from all over the United States from alum, and we're going to be giving you a book with all these letters that you and Dot can read them all cover to cover. As the time has gone by tonight, if we try to read them all, some of the little kids, I think, would fall asleep. I know my wife would definitely be sacked out. But just a few notes that Karen and I will share. From Dan Rico, class of 1968, having you as a teacher was clearly one of the highlights of my college experience.
From John Richards, class of 73, my time at Wheaton was during dark days nationally, Kent State, Vietnam, Watergate especially, etc. It would have easily been a time to become cynical and somewhat bitter about service or a better attitude toward government. But I can recall so well Mr. Rung's spirit and positive stance on so much of life, not because he wasn't concerned and discouraged about current events, but because he lived in the eternal. He truly brought together his faith and his discipline. It was no theory to him.
From Donald Carver, class of 1977. Finally, Mr. Rung, I need to tell you how much you impacted my life as a Christian. Through your joy of life, your inquiring mind, and your commitment to Christ, I was motivated to critique my own relationship with Jesus. At Wheaton, I was not always so sure that Christ was real. Fortunately, through the love and friendship of both you and your wife, I was convinced otherwise. In those few short years at Wheaton, I was able to form the foundation of belief, which, although far from complete, has continued to grow and expand to this day.
This is from Barbara Bates Alexander, class of 1977, and it's written on Defense Intelligence Agency stationery. Thank you for your dedication and years of faithful teaching. You've made an impact on so many of us. Your exuberance, wonderful anecdotes, exclamation point, and most importantly, your commitment to our Lord have given us who pass through the department a wonderful example to follow.
From Chris and Linda Pershon, class of 77, for Linda and Chris, class of 78. You were greatly instrumental in our decisions to choose political science as a major, and we've even forgiven you for that. As effective and instructional as your lessons were, however, we have to admit we're still Republicans.
From Ted Moser, class of 80, I received one additional sermon from you at Wheaton, Dick, but this one was lived rather than spoken. It was about the importance of investing in other persons' lives, one at a time. Your dinners for students, your willingness to engage students in meaningful conversations, and the personal style that you brought to teaching made for an example that I won't forget.
From Mark and Kathy Vaselkev, class of 1982. Our friendships with you and Mrs. Rung, our friendship with you and Mrs. Rung was a highlight of our Wheaton years and has continued to bless us since that time. We especially appreciate your challenge to integrate politics and faith with thoughtful consideration, rather than accepting blandly standard evangelical responses. Your counsel and sense of humor were also special privileges of our college years.
From Philip D. Eskelin, class of 84. Who can ever forget the same sports jacket you wore day after day? 81. Who will forget your verbal sparring with students who may have not fought through their position? Who will ever forget your kindness and friendship to every student, regardless of political affiliation? Remember my smashed left ring finger in Munich?
From Elvin Ernady in Lagos, Nigeria. One of my first memories of Wheaton is having a Sunday evening dinner at your home with other freshman poli-sci majors, and your hospitality continued throughout my 4 years at Wheaton. I also remember with irony your pleadings in the midst of the Cold War, not to simple-mindedly label the Soviets as communist pigs or whatever. The drastic changes there in the past few years certainly lend credence to your preaching. Eleanor was from the class of 1986.
This one, the last one, I won't be too surprised if I break up on this one, so bear with me here. This is from Kevin R. Gustafson, 87. I'm not sure if I ever even told you this, but you were a major reason why I chose Wheaton. And to be honest, you were the reason a scared 17-year-old chose political science as his major. Once I came to Wheaton, you and your wife immediately took me under your wing. Everything from little notes to Sunday night suppers let me know that I was to feel a part of your family. Looking back, I cherish all the time I was able to learn from you as well as participate in our playful exchanges. I knew that underlying it all was a sincere desire not only to show the integration of politics in the kingdom, but also a genuine enjoyment of the students. That kind of love can't be faked or taught. And yet, most of my fondest memories of you and your wife will probably be all the times we spent outside of the classroom. A summer in Europe together on ISP really drew us together and remains an experience I would never trade for anything. And of course, I'm sure the next time you move your residence, you'll volunteer my services. While I may have ribbed you on how amazing it was that one so dedicated to the proletariat could have amassed so much material possessions, when you were leaving 920 Lexington, I actually was enjoying the move. But as usually, I wasn't going to let you off the hook. I cannot imagine going back to Wheaton and not seeking you out, not anticipating your good-natured ribbing or colorful stories. I cannot imagine this campus without such two wonderful people. In fact, I cannot imagine two more wonderful witnesses on which to model my own life. I love you and will miss you both.
And we'd like to hand you these letters, and with appreciation, I'm sure, from all of the students and faculty and staff that have letters in there. It's going to take the two of you quite some time to read them all, and it'll be a cherished moment, I'm sure. Now it's my pleasure to report that we've received another telegram. And so
I didn't know. I know these people listen to that.
So let's see who this one is from. Dick, as you know, has had not only contacts within government that we've seen in our earlier telegrams, but has contacts within the religious community as well. And I'll read this telegram and then tell you who it's from. Professor Amstutz has invited me to your retirement dinner, but regrettably I'm unable to attend. I did want to you to know again how grateful I am for the political leadership you provided among evangelicals in getting the moral majority underway. Early on, when we struggled making inroads in some of the colleges of the Christian College Coalition, you played a vital role in forcefully articulating some of the key principles of the movement, such as being for a strong defense, standing up for the rights of Israel, and of course being strongly pro-American. Through your dedicated leadership, we accomplished a goal that I thought was unreachable, namely, establishing a strong and effective moral majority organization in the heart of the evangelical world. And because of success in the Midwest, we were able to galvanize the evangelical vote that helped put a godly and righteous leader in the White House in 1981. In short, you played a key role in the Reagan victory, which contributed to the rebuilding of America's religious foundation. I know you agree with me when I say I'm a fundamentalist and proud of it. There is a lot that still needs to be done to combat the growing secular humanism, relativism, and anti-Americanism rampant in our society. Keep me appraised of your activities, and of course, if you happen to journey through Lynchburg, there is a God. If you happen to journey through Lynchburg, please let me know. It would be a pleasure having lunch with you and Dot. The lunch, of course, will be Dutch treat, so bring a healthy supply of money. With all best wishes, Jerry Falwell. Now, before making another brief presentation, I just want to personally say that as I've looked through all these letters and thought about you, Dick, I think you've left to Mark and I and Karen and Ashley a legacy that I think we probably won't be able to fulfill. This unbelievable attention to freshmen right from the beginning as kind of the parents of freshmen, and I hate to say it, but maybe in your later years becoming almost grandparents to the freshmen. So many of the students mention this. A couple of the letters that we've read have touched on it. But it's just a wonderful legacy, making really uptight young people, at least some of them uptight, feel at home. And I'm just not sure the rest of us will be able to carry that on. It's a legacy that you've given to us, and all I can say is we'll try, but I don't think we're going to do it. And your concern for students is just unbelievable. And so that's my kind of personal testimony to you both. We're going to miss you, and we love you. Now to my final thing, and I have a question for you, Dick. This is now before God and your fellow man here, and so we're going to expect an honest answer, although I'm not sure. I think I know what you're going to say. Could you name your favorite president of the United States in the last 2 to 3 decades, before God and before your fellow man? Say the last 20 years. Could you name your favorite president?
I have no problem with that, sir.
Could you?
His name is James Carter.
James Carter. That's interesting. Let me read. Let me read this to you, Dick, and then give it to you. After the telegrams you've received tonight, you may not really believe this.
I don't know if I'm
But at the top of the page, it says in print, Jimmy Carter, April 24th, 1991. To Professor Dick Rung, congratulations on your retirement from Wheaton College. Rosalind and I are pleased to join your family, colleagues, and friends in celebrating this important milestone in your life. Please accept our warm best wishes for happiness on this special day and throughout the years ahead. Sincerely, Jimmy Carter. And this is literally, truly, a letter from Jimmy Carter to Dick Rung that we're just pleased as punch to give to you, and I guarantee you this is going to live long in the Rung house.
And of course, Richard Nixon, I never thought he'd send me a letter. But thanks a lot. I want to thank both of you and also Karen for tonight. And I also want to say something to Nita. Without Nita, we gave her little flowers today, and I wrote on the note, I said, I'm going to miss you. And I am. I wasn't going to, give any long speech.
I think we still have a couple other things that we'll do.
Go ahead.
I'd like to ask.
No, I thought you guys might be fun.
Mrs. Dodson.
Well, we have a few lighter gifts on the lighter side for you tonight, Dick. And I want to say on a serious note, first of all, though, how nice it has been to work with Professor Rung. someone whose handwriting is very legible, someone who gives you work way ahead of time. We'll say on Monday, I have an exam on Friday. If I give you this tomorrow, can you get it done by Friday? And it's not typical, so I will miss that. I will miss this friendship and this many kindnesses to me. In my first year as Secretary of the Political Science Department, I realized that Professor Rung's accessibility to students and to myself should not be taken advantage of. I got in the habit of just sort of going on in, and I had an experience that prompted me to write a poem for this evening and to purchase a little gift for Professor Rung. I'll read the poem first. And I'm not a poet, but I had to stretch to get some of these rhymes here. Pass the gift down. In my first year on the job, I'm confessing, I learned what was to be a valuable lesson. Right into Dick Rung's door I went without tapping, and to my surprise, I found the prof napping. His head tilted back, his eyes closed tight. I admit I was jealous. It was a peaceful sight. I backed out real quiet-like and went on my way. The question could wait until later that day. But it made me more careful. Time to knock I would take. To be sure in the future, I'd find him awake. Dick, this small gift's the answer, I can only suppose, to give you more freedom to enjoy sweet repose. Just pull the bill down right over your eyes, and those who approach will know it is wise to wait until later, when you'll be at your best, and not bother you while you're taking a rest. You can snooze when you want, when thusly attired, and folks will whisper with envy, that man's tired.
Lean, mean napping machine. Thank you. Oh, that's the right color, isn't it? Yeah.
And this next item that the department got for Professor Rung, we had to give a lot of thought to because we had some kind of strict criteria. There are some in our department who buy their clothes at second-hand stores, perhaps. I'm not sure, but Professor Rung is a very sharp dresser, and so we had the criterion of keeping, helping him live up to his image. He has grandchildren who care about what he looks like when he goes places with them, so we knew we had to get to the designer level with this item. And the second criterion was to help us make a statement about what we feel Professor Rung's new status makes him. We can't have here teacher or educator. What is it we feel about Dick Rung as a person now? What is his place? When he goes to a ball game in the middle of the day, on September 12th, when Professors Kelstead and Amstutz and Jones are teaching, and he's at Manuka-Whiskey Park, or if he can walk or run any time of the day, not just early in the morning or late in the evening, what could we get that would signify who he is after another few weeks? So we had some stiff criteria, and that's what we came up with.
Thank you very much.
Think you can grow into it?
burst of scenes.
Professor Haltman, the three of us have had a chance of spending a lot of time together on the International Studies program, and Professor Haltman wanted to share some of his recollections, cherished memories of working with Dick and not. So, Jim?
What I really wanted to do was get back at him when he couldn't talk back. And I also wrote a poem here, but in order to make sense, he'll understand this poem better than the rest of you. So I need to tell a few stories that are involved in the poem, and if you're prepared to be here for a while, it's I divide this into several categories. One is the theological angle of things. Every time that we'd get talking about something, that he would always say, well, the Yukon people are money people. And then he'd sidle up and he'd say, you know what's impressed me? He'd say, it's a tenner a cottage. Why should I care? They're building a mansion for me area. How many times I've heard that song? So the poem is written to be sung to the music of that song, which I think is called A Child of the King. And I wanted to get some people. I looked over the guest list. I wasn't sure who were singers here, so we're just going to read the poem instead of singing it. But when you hear the poem, you have to think of it in terms of that song. And I couldn't find the music either in the college songbook nor in the Mennonite hymnal, so it must be a rare. The other theological angle here is relates to his sharp conscience. Every time we'd start playing rook, if he would get behind, he'd get convicted against playing cards. And every time he would get ahead, he would say the Lord takes care of his own. So, we never got very far. We'll move from the theology now onto this dream of being thin that he always lived with. And so we would always be on ISP traveling around, we'd always be on this dieting mode. And he'd always talk about he was going to come back looking like a string of suckers. That was always his phrase. He's going to be looking like a string of suckers. So we had this thing where we had to, if we ate anything good, it had to have fruit on it. So we found more ways to find fruit in everything, and we would have ice cream sundaes and everything just with a cherry on the top or something, so we could look like a string of suckers when we got back. And then there's the shopping. We'd go shopping, and a number of things. This one particularly, we were in a dollar store in the Soviet Union, and we were looking around, and Amstutz and I were buying here. Mark will remember this. And we came out, and Mark and I both had got about the same thing. We got this brass, what everybody called a pot, a brass pot, really a nice vase. And on the bottom it said "Made in India." But we liked the pots, and we bought them anyway. And Dick came out with this wooden thing, inlaid wood and everything. And of course, when you buy things, you're always trying to buy the stuff better than the other people had. So we got out, we were bragging up our pots, and he was bragging up his plaque. And then when we got back to the residence, and Donna came over and looked at all these things we had spread out, she said to Mark, "Why did you buy this pot?" He said, "Look at the folk art that Dick bought." Ever since that, he'd always sidle up and buy folk art. Everything he had. We had to live with the folk art that he bought, including the Russian hat, which he gave to a Danish guy who was going to bring the thing over to her mother in New York, who was going to get it to Wheaton so that he wouldn't have to ship it from Russia. For 6 months I told him he'd never see the hat. And then he got a hat, which I insist is not the real authentic one. And he says it is. I think it's just a fake rabbit that the mother brought from New York. Then there was the basilica, the wooden basilica of St. Basil's. Has those tiny little wooden points. Carrying that thing all over Russia, all over Europe, trying to keep these points from breaking off the top. another piece of folk art. Quite add up to the brass pot that never broke. Then there were the navigating experiences we had. The dry runs to Liverpool Station. Now, when you take a group of students and you're going into places you haven't been before, you don't want to head down the wrong track. But most of us don't take 4 or 5 dry runs to figure out to make sure that we're not going to get down the track. So we go back and forth in the subway to Liverpool, making sure we had this all right instead of really seeing London. It might have been necessary, though, because one time when he was navigating on his own, he was taking kids from Dover on the hovercraft over to Calais in France. And so they gets them all herded up. I'm sure they made 3 or 4 dry runs to Dover, but of course he couldn't make any dry runs across the channel. So they got to Dover and they got on the hovercraft and they ended up over in France and they got off and the sign said Bologna. So no, this had to be Calais. It had to be Calais. Well, it really was Bologna. They'd gotten on the wrong hovercraft and the bus was all at Calais waiting for them. So he's never quite lived that one down. Then there's the orderliness. This man is orderly and clean. I mean, this is, when it comes to order, he was put in charge of getting us into Russia with the visas. So he and I, instead of looking at Finland, touring Finland, we sat in the hotel and counted visas. I mean, we counted visas, and then we'd head out to the hotel and we wondered whether we lost one. So we'd go back and count them again. And so we counted visas all night long. We finally got into Russia. Same as packing clothes. I always had this tremendous desire to just necessitate them. Sometimes I'd go in the room when he wasn't there and I'd switch things around, and he'd walk in, get everything lined up. Never knew probably I was in there. The other thing that happened, we had this beautiful bus. Either a Mercedes, and in one case it was a Volvo, and everything in it. Refrigerators, bathrooms, everything. Well, we drive across Europe, but no one's allowed to use the bathroom because it might get dirty, and then you have to clean it up. So we had a rule: unless it was extreme emergency, don't use the bathroom in facilities. Yeah. And now this one, he washes out clothes every night. He washes his socks. He washes out his clothes, make sure he doesn't get caught with dirty clothes. So, in washing these things out, then he hangs them on hangers. And he's got this one hanger that you get it out of the suitcase and then you blow it up. He got this great big hanger and he hangs his shirt over this balloon every night. That's part of the routine you go through. When he really got into a mess was when we ended up in Leningrad one night, or the first night we got there one time, and all the luggage was in Athens. So there we were with all our, just with nothing but what we had in our hands, and that, of course, Dick doesn't have all his things in, and so before long he was brushing his teeth with a towel. We had Dick brushing his teeth with his towel. Dot had a cold at the time, had just recovered from pneumonia. She was washing out paper hankies at night, drying them off so she could use them the next day. Now when it comes to service, he really, he's the top. Even when it comes to service for the waiters. One time we were in a little place called Corona in The Hague, and he was at one place in the restaurant and I was at another. And we had the same waiter. And when we were done, we paid, and when I paid and gave the waiter the tip, the waiter looked at me and he said, "That fellow over there gave me twice as much." And he pointed over to me. After that, he's been calling me cheap. But the real act of service, this is, you probably recognize, is one of probably the most dramatic act of service anybody can do. And he almost drugged me into it. We were, after counting the visas one day in in Helsinki, we went down to the out of the hotel, and there were these old ladies, traveling ladies who were not too mobile, and they got talking with us. I don't know, we were talking about something, and then they started talking about the bathtubs, which were elevated. They were sort of high, and they couldn't get out of them. And they were asking us whether we could get out of the bathtub. And we said, well, yeah, we did, but they were pretty high. And they said, man, we had a terrible time with it. So when we left, Dick says, if you need any help getting out of the So, that's taking service just a little bit more. Well, he always had a concern that we were, anytime someone showed movies or used an overhead projector in the classroom, that was copping out. You should be discussing under a tree the high ideas. You should not be using technology. But, so, with that background, I think maybe the poem might, now remember you have to think of the music when I read this, because I'm not a poet, not as much of a poet as Anita is, I don't think. So, it's called You're a Child of Wheaton, and you have to bear with me, it had 12 verses. My wife told me I shouldn't read them all, but if you get sick of it, just say so. A job or retirement, why should you care? They're building a dacha for you over there. Your rubles and diamonds, your silver and gold have filled up your coffers. They're beginning to mold. You're a child of pure gold, a child of pure gold. With TIA income, you're a child of pure gold. A rook game and cheese ball, what a delight. A Soviet sweep and an aeroplane flight. A Mennonite statue and Russian folk art. A Diet Dame Blanche and a fruit pastry tart. You're a child of locale, child of locale. With Boslop the Birdman, you're a child of locale. A wooden basilica, a Soviet hat, a Frieslandish curtain, a lilliput flap, a bright linen button. Oh, what have you got? Oh, nothing compared to a brass Indian pot. A child of culture, a child of culture. With artifacts plenty, you're a child of culture. Directing a cruise to Calais in France. You beached in Bologna, the trip to enhance. But all know much better, it was the wrong town. Your story is weak, and you can't live it down. You're a child of Calais, a child of Calais. Bologna behind you, you're a child of Calais. If Robert is driving, oh, what could go wrong? The bus is a Volvo, the stereo's on. The drink is a bargain, we're heading to Bonn. But do not tell Dick if you must use the John. You're a child of pine saw, a child of pine saw. A child of pine saw. The Hague is inviting, the evening is warm. The restaurant is waiting for rich lines to form. Then Dick plays the rich man and Jim eyes the cost. Rung's tip is gigantic and the budget is lost. You're a child of the tip, a child of the tip. When waiters come running, you're a child of the tip. The luggage is orderly, shined to a gleam. The clothing is carefully pressed to the seam. You then begin shuffling your shirts about noon to make sure each one gets the hanger balloon. You're a child of detail, a child of detail. With hangers and irons, you're a child of detail. We counted the visas again and again. To lose one would be an incredible pain. Who cares if we miss seeing Helsinki's hub? At least some old lady will be free of her time. You're a child of service, a child of service. If tubs need a ladder, you're a child of service. For 28 years in Republican land, you spurn trickle down and you lended a hand. Cause Marx made a point and the Bible is clear. The pursuit of self-interest is a goal one must fear. You're a child of the left, a child of the left. In any discussion, you're a child of the left. Now, socialization makes props what they are. An electronic gadget cannot make a star. Technology ruins the Platonic mind. If the power goes off, Dick is not in a bind. You're a child of the Greeks, a child of the Greeks. With a book and a quill pen, you're a child of the Greeks. The memories are many, I'll cherish them long. They can't all be captured in this classic song. Your Christian commitment, your humor and care will be missed on our campus when you're not there. You're a child of Wheaton, a child of Wheaton. As Professor Emeritus, you're a child of Wheaton. Thank you.
Mark asked me to share a few recollections, years Dick and I have been together. Been a couple there. Offices were next to each other on some occasions. Students usually knew that. We had a way of communicating without getting close to each other, and it rocked the whole region sometimes. Did you come in and tell us to be quiet one time, Art, when you were teaching an old 409? There was more than one prof came in and suggested that Dick and I were making too much noise. But I want to share with you some things some of you may not know about Dick. Dick may not know some of these things about himself either. Few of us really know that Dick was brought to Wheaton College with full intention of following in the shoes of Hudson Armitage. Hudson Armitage had been brought here as the heir apparent to his predecessor. It was part of a plot, I must confess, to keep the history department running Wheaton College. You see, President Edmund had come out of the history department, President Armitage had come out of the history department, and Dick had come in as a part of the history department at that time. He was really being groomed for the presidency. Some of the evidence of this, if you doubt my word, and this is not an exhaustive list, Dodd had been secretary to Hudson and Gordon College and was part of the insider information already. You see the plot is very thick. He was a highly reputed preacher in New England, a successor to the tradition of Jonathan Edwards, George Whitefield. One of the primary concerns was his military record. One thinks of President Edmund, who had served in the infantry in World War I, and Dr. Armitage worked with the Navy in World War II. Dick was right in this fine military tradition. He was concerned about having the right people in public affairs, and that concern for the right was very much a part of his favor. His outstanding scholarship in ancient history was high on the list of the criteria that he brought with him. His similarity in style and demeanor to President Armitage was his ability to command a seagoing vessel. Ask Dick about that sometime. And he's willing to wear his uniform on campus. And he did. I think the first Veterans Day chapel that on campus, you wore your uniform. And he served on the Military Affairs Committee. So you see how all of this was working together. And finally, his ready acceptance by the board and all the members of the board put him right in line. But changes came about. The mantle did not fall on Dick to lead Wheaton to greater glory in the 80s. Perhaps part of that is that he switched from history to political science, and only historians could follow along that way. But even though he was an ambassador without a portfolio, a prophet without a mantle, Dick served well in a number of areas. There was his exemplary practical political leadership in the community. We all know how well he carried that out. Michael Donahue, the president of DuPage County Democratic guru, is reputed to have said, "Dick Rung is all talk. He has not yet brought hay to the donkey or cleaned the stable. All he does is add to the mess." I'm sure local Republicans have appreciated Dick and are happy his efforts have been confined to the classroom. Page Phillip says, "Just keep him talking. It adds to the confusion." And Ralph Barker, former mayor of Wheaton, former representative, admits, "Dick Rung is one of my dearest friends. We're just alike. No one understands either one of us." Salt and light were frequent words seems that Dick mixed a lot of pepper in the salt, and the light only revealed shades of gray. He never saw things in black and white. Dick's trek to the presidency perhaps was misdirected when some people at College Church and struggling students expressed a desire for a less structured, more analytical, more reflective Christian education experience. Dick and Dot opened their home to many of us on Sunday mornings. Dick's sensitivity to people, alternative viewpoints, and contemporary culture helped many people to reassess and reconfirm their faith. This sensitivity is noted in the conglomerate of peoples who attended. Mary Lee Melvin, yours truly, perhaps mothers of this group. Bob Schuster was there on occasion at that time. But let me illustrate something special out of that in his sensitivity. There's an elderly, somewhat unpleasant gentleman that came and attended the group, didn't go to church anywhere else. Kenneth was a chain smoker. Do you think Dick would let him smoke on Sunday mornings in his house?
I don't know.
He is feeble and elderly. He had a nice chair that he just loved to sit in. Dick did his best to get somebody else to sit in that chair. Kenneth often sat in the kitchen by himself pouting. Such sensitivity, Dick was overwhelmed. Kenneth later died. Speaking of sensitivity, I'm sure Dick's family might address this matter also. You've heard of motherhood and apple pie, against which it is neither safe nor right nor American to go. Some of you know Grandma Rung. This sweet nonagenarian must lobby all of Dick's friends and family to get the house warm for her regular Christmas visits, often to little avail. I've heard it from her ears myself. From her ears? In addition, she has complained with regular frequency about mother abuse. Since as soon as she arrived, one could find her apron on, hands in dishwater, cooking, cleaning, and almost anything else. Did she shovel snow for you too, Dick?
She only painted radiators when she was...
Painted radiators. It was only a recent plea of disability that Dick finally relented. What a wonderful regular sensitivity, Dick. It just shows everywhere. As we noted earlier, Dick had an enviable record in civic affairs. He volunteered to help the Scouts through Dindy Wreck. But when it came time for camping, nothing was quite right. There were complaints about the food. There was no cot in his tent. No one ran the heat pipes in. No plumbing. And when he was asked to help again, he sought to ascertain if the camp out was going to be at the local highway. And when that couldn't be answered affirmatively, we could no longer count on Dick to help the Scouts. Here was this old military veteran, and you'd think he would be going right in with the Scouts, but not Dick. It isn't just the younger generation that saw Dick. Well, there's much else one might note. We've already heard about the Wheaton Five, the old fourth floor gang, some of his cronies from Buffalo, most likely would have some good words said, Chuck Weber here, Clyde Tyson. But he was above all a preacher. How many of you heard Dick preach? How many of you have heard Dick preach? How many times? If you've heard him once, you've heard it all. Joshua Walker. But he was good. He practiced so often. But did you know that Kent Hughes, knowing of his reputation, once invited Dick to preach at College Church? Kent had announced a series on Joshua and found that he was going to be gone the very first Sunday. And he called upon Dick to substitute for him. He knew that Dick had an excellent record in homiletics and hermeneutics, all that it required to preach. His reputation from New England had preceded him. And here was Dick's big chance. The last rung on the ladder to the top. This was why Dick had come to Wheaton. We all waited breathlessly while Dick debated the decision, but he declined. in false modesty, claiming a prior engagement. Despair overshadowed the campus, the church, the town, and the country. In his anxiety, Dick suggested that Kent Hughes had not written that note of invitation, but reliable sources assured Dick that the invitation was genuine. Dick, think what might have been. A great preacher, a practicing politician, a political guru, Wheaton's own Jesse Jackson. Underneath it all, the true Dick Rung emerges, a separatist, a political conservative, a realist in international relations, why, possibly a crypto-Baptist. Have you recently considered his name? Richard Calvin Rung. He blamed the name on his mother, who chose Calvin not for the reformer, although Dick likes to think so, but for Calvin Coolidge. Look, folks, this is Dick, and this is Dick's true intellectual forebear, Calvin Coolidge. This told the tale at the time Dick was born. Dick, you've always been an advocate of predestination. Now we have the proof. You see, if you had joined with Calvin Coolidge instead of resisting his ideas, think what might have been.
We have a few others. I wanted to say a few things. Bill Seitz. Bill, a graduate of the class of 1978, a political science major.
And the word is it will not be Norman Schwarzkopf. Dr. Amstutz has resisted that, even though some people think that's the way political science should be run. That won't happen. Where do I start? I guess I start with the first time I met Mr. and Mrs. Rung was at their house. I was a freshman political science major. We all sat around the table and heard the tales of the Gang of Five. I heard that they got in trouble for going against the war in the 70s. Not the last one. Not the last war. That was the popular one. The unpopular one. You guys didn't get in trouble again, did you, for not backing it up? Well, anyhow, that afternoon, he told us some stories, and then we started talking about our dreams for Wheaton College. And it was interesting because halfway through the meeting, I just saw his head in his hand, and he was shaking and shaking and shaking like that. I didn't understand what the problem was. Well, in the next several weeks, some of us had started to live out our dreams. And of course, Mrs. Rung reported back that there was one student that just kept bouncing between Henry Nelson's office, Ruth Bamford's office, and Ward Creekbaum's office, and then kept bouncing back and forth again. It seemed that this one student had a problem with interpreting the rules at Wheaton College. This student felt that since Wheaton had rules, if it wasn't written, you could do it. And of course, a lot of people at Wheaton said, if it's not written down, you can't do it. So Mr. Rung was very influential in that, in straightening out at least one student in the rules of Wheaton College. But he stuck with us. He was our first sponsor of our deli. That was a store that we started selling candy and soda out of our dorm room to help pay the bills for college. And he stuck with us. He even stuck with us when we turned it into a political action committee and nominated several students on campus to several different offices, including college union president. That group got me elected college union president for 2 years. And he was not only advisor to student government, but he was advisor to college union because he always asked me, can we socialize? Can we socialize this group? Well, let me give you a quick example if we made socialization. As a sophomore, I proposed the movie West Side Story. It got turned down. Of course, you know who's seen West Side Story. It has unresolved violence. That was the reason I turned it down. And it had sensuous dancing, so it was turned down. so we came at it again, and we tried to co-sponsor all the President's Men with the political science department. Got turned down again. Got turned down. They said it was language. I think it was because it was a democratic film. But anyhow, it got turned down. And he stuck with us. I mean, I remember one time Van Cliburn couldn't come for an artist series, and President Armerding stood up and said, and College Union will provide a movie. And we didn't have a movie, but we got the Hindenburg. We showed the Hindenburg. Well, we had a preview of the Hindenburg, and Mr. Rung was there, and he said, "Oh, George C. Scott, we got to get rid of all that language." So we edited all that language out, and that night we showed the Hindenburg. And then we kept socializing, and we moved to Westerns. And I remember we watched The Magnificent Seven in the little room there off of the stoop, and Mr. Rung was watching it, and at the end of the movie, some of the faculty were, ready to stand up and say no to that, and he slapped his hands together and he said, "Well, there can't be anything wrong with that movie, can there?" And sure enough, we got it through. And it was successful because our last movie that we previewed, that we showed on campus when I was college union president, was Rocky. And it was great. I think the students were finally socialized. But the faculty and staff didn't get it because they kept coming back and saying, "Why do you want to show the students a film? And why are the students getting so excited about a film of the governor of New York, Nelson But I have one regret, and that's when we had our parade. We had a lot of parades, and I remember the farewell parade I had. I told Mr. Rung, I said, "Someday we're going to do it in D.C." And I'm now 35 years old, and I'm able to run for office. But I'm kind of in a dilemma. I'm still underqualified to be president and overqualified to be vice president. So But anyhow, let me just talk for a minute about the teachers. See, from a student aspect, no one has really talked about being a professor and a teacher. And he was tough. Let me tell you, he was tough. I mean, we took a course one time on England and Russia. And I remember, I didn't have a problem, writing the concepts in English, but when you had to write them all in Russian, for the final, that was a little tough. And when those student aides came in, I remember once they came in, I mean, they should have got combat pay after you heard the students' comments of the exams. And he brought pre-med students to their knees. I mean, to their knees. I had a friend of mine who aced all the pre-med courses at Wheaton. And he only got 1 B at Wheaton College. And that's when he took American Government by the Man in the Center. But seriously, Mr. Rung has helped me tremendously. He always asked a question. He always told me, know who you are and who you serve. And of course, when I was out in LA with E.V. Hill, I didn't have as many problems with that as I did when I came back to Illinois and worked for a certain Fortune 500 company in Downers Grove. But, that was always important. He'd always say to me, know who you are and who you serve. And I guess I'm like you, I've got a list of people that I admire. And of course the list, you have a lot of people you admire, and then you meet people, and then you get to know them, and then most of them go off your list. And then you watch a person, and then you see the inconsistency in their lives, and they go off the list. And so my list is kind of short, because basically I have people that I feel that they preach what they believe, and they just do it and are consistent in that. And I would like to say that I think Dick Rung is definitely on my list of that, because he knows who he is, and though he's given 28 years to an institution, he knows he serves someone greater than man or even Wheaton College. He knows that he serves Jesus Christ. And I appreciate that. I appreciated his counsel, his continual counsel through the years. The good news is friends never leave, and I am glad that he considers me a friend of his. I gave you a little present there. Why don't you open it, just so that...
Bill handed me this and told me I was not to open it until I got home, so that's why I had it in my pocket.
But it's something that I think you and your grandkids will enjoy. I worked hard at finding it.
It's a 1968 Nolan Ryan?
No.
Let me read the card. Can I read this? Dear Mr. Rung, now that your grandkids have you collecting cards, save these. I'm sure they will be collector's items for the Republican National Committee in these years to come. Congratulations on 28 years at Wheaton. Survival was, I'm sure, the key to your success. And it's Bill and Dawn, and then it's it's Desert Storm, and it has to do with Hussein and Bush.
Instead of 9, Hussein Bush cards. Yes.
Mr. Rung, this wasn't supposed to be official, but I've heard lots of jokes tonight about some people that I used to work for. I would take a few minutes to get back. Seriously though, I didn't set out to work in politics. In fact, I thought very little of politics as a teenager growing up. Philosophy was really where the liberal mind was supposed to center, or literature, but politics was a little too dirty for a Christian with a high mind. I remember taking your course, and I took it because I couldn't take political theory without taking your course. I was very impressed with you, not only you, but Dot, who just sort of sparkled at your side. And I remember those church services that Tom referred to. Little was I to know, though, that many years later, my path would lead me to work not only for Jimmy Carter, but for Ronald Reagan and for Mr. Meese. I survived Jimmy Carter. I survived Ronald Reagan. I survived Mr. Meese, and we'll see if I survive this one. But seriously, one of the things I learned from Ronald Reagan was that if you don't know what to give your friends who already have everything, you give them jelly beans. So we've got a special Wheaton College jelly bean jar from the Alumni Association for you. And if you run out of jelly beans, we can get you some more. They're blue and orange. You know. Would you pass it down, Mr.
Our former Secretary Liz Morgan is here, and I don't know if you want to just add a word.
I hardly have a voice. I really didn't answer the phone this way. But I have two memories that are fun memories for me from working in the office. One was coming in, Dick coming in from seminar. The kids were so mad. And he would just egg them on and then laugh. And I'd think, this guy is so much fun. The other memory that I have was in the old Blanchard Hall. The hard surfaces in the hallway would carry sound. And I could be in the office, and I could hear Dick and Haltman coming from the other end of the building, guffawing all the way down the hall. And it was just one of those fun, happy times. He would say to the kids in the office, "We're carrying the torch. We're going to pass the torch and you're going to drop it."
this has been a long evening, and I don't want to, but may I just take a moment and just say something personal? I came here in '72, and Dick and I have labored in the vineyard until '81 as a twosome, and then Bud came and it was a threesome, and now we're a foursome with Karen. And the thing I would just say about it, I think that we have been blessed in our department, but also just in our working relationship there. It's been fun, it's been straight. And I think that's hard to do sometimes in a Christian environment. I think we hold things in, we talk around people's backs. There can be some deviousness in a Christian environment. And one thing about my relationship to Richard Rung from 1972 to right now is it's straight. He's talked to me, looks me straight in the eye, and tells me what he wants, what he thinks. And I look him straight in the eye, and there's no rancor. And I really appreciate that, Richard. It's a comment, it's a commendation. I think of the memories of when we were able to, it's no secret that Dick and I would probably disagree on virtually most public policy issues. And I can still, to me, one of the fond memories of my 19 years at Wheaton is Jim, Dick, and myself being in front of 45 students at Kortehemen over in the Netherlands, modeling for our students emotional, heated dialogue on every conceivable issue of politics. And when we were done, going out and playing volleyball together, and then later on going to have a Dom Blanche, Richard's favorite form of ice cream, that's a vanilla ice cream with wonderful Dutch chocolate sauce on it. And Dick, I'm going to miss it. It's not that there aren't others here, but I want to tell you that I think that you, by the way that you have comported yourself on this campus, you have modeled for the students something that we need to cultivate in our homes and in this college community, which is to have healthy combat without losing our love and respect one for the other. And I think that when students reflect back on your teaching, whether it's at the intro level or at the seminar level, I think I can never recall an instance where I ever heard somebody say, well, he downgraded me because he disagreed with me. And you found a way to challenge people to think perspectively, to think Christianly about politics without alienating them. And I think that's one of your great legacies, which is by being straight and challenging people to think Christianly, you've modeled something which is absolutely indispensable to the long-term effectiveness of Wheaton College. You've been a challenge to me on that. So I want to thank you for being a friend. I want to thank you for being straight. I want to thank you for always thinking about the deeper issues, for talking about world issues. I want to thank you for modeling together as a couple. I think Bud said it very well, is that I don't know how we can replace what you and Dot have done over the years. Your home has always been open. The students, from the very beginning to the very end, they knew if they had a hard moment, they could go and find solace in your home. Non-judgmental solace. So, Richard, thank you very much. Thank you for 28 years of service. I hope that this is a beginning for you, as I'm sure it is, whether it's a dasha or a log cabin that you're going to build. But stay in touch with us. Stay in touch with all the students who have been blessed by your life and Dot's life. Stay in touch with us. Come over and have some heated debates with us. We need it. We need people to talk to us straight and then to walk out in brotherly love and to pursue justice cause that you have always challenged us to do. And that's as an expression of our gratitude for your many years of service, we have a little gift. Token of our appreciation, Richard.
Thank you. Try. It looks like a facility. You're not going to get it. Nobody's watching bronze pot. Yeah. It says R.C. Rung, colleague, mentor, friend.
Turn it around.
And the other side says, Department of Political Science, Wheaton College. Listen, thank you very much.
Well, keep looking. You're a fisherman, aren't you?
Well, no, he's not. I heard from Ruprecht tonight, the fishermen are really, they don't tell it straight, you know? They're liars.
Professor's a Greek. There's a collection of those.
You think of those guys, huh? That's beautiful. Yes. My turn? See, now they used up all the time. Especially that friend Haldeman, and the guy I would have called my dear friend, Tom Kane. But I may be on Seitz's list, but those two guys are off of mine. They took one off. No, I wondered, what in the world can a man say to a group of people who take the time to come out for his retirement dinner? I'm overwhelmed by you people being here, so many of you, and you're all very close to me. And I don't want to start going down the line because I miss something. But there's one thing I need to tell you about Haldeman, right, that he never mentioned. But I'm a man of faith, and he keeps telling me he was a man of faith. So when he found out one year that we had to fly airplane, he said to me, I don't know if I want to fly airplane. I said, well, why not? He said, their planes have ball tires. And I said, really? He said, yeah, I've heard they don't even change the tires. So here we are in the new Leningrad airport, and we're walking out to the plane, and I thought, I'm going to fix this Haldeman. I said, we'll probably get in trouble because we'll break out of the line, and I'm going to look at the tires. So we did. We sort of looked under the wing and said, Haldeman, look. Look at the tires. They got treads. We'll make it down to Kiev. But he's standing in the plane. I'm sure he prayed most of the way. It's okay to pray, but he had very little faith because he thought that all of the Aeroflot aircraft had ball tires. I think he thought there were blow-up patches on them. But there's other things I can tell you too. This guy would play rook with me, and he bragged a lot. But in bad English, they ain't so tough. I mean, we took them like Grant took Richmond some night. But I want to tell you one other thing. About money, the idea of money, I would go out and I would buy cheese, a nice Dutch cheese. And I would say, we're going to play rook and we're going to eat cheese. Invariably, you know, old dieteer here said, oh, I'm not going to have any cheese tonight. Man, I looked at it. I can't have any cheese. And you get this cat playing a rook, and he pretends he doesn't know he's doing it, but he takes your cheese, and he keeps eating the cheese. And he's eating the cheese. This guy, no, you weren't going to eat cheese. I'll get one more little piece. By the way, and he ate a lot of cheese. All right? And I could tell you some other things, too, but I won't.
I brought 28 balls of cheese home for you once. 28 balls.
You see, anytime he had to do something where I bring, he ate all my cheese over there, and then when I bought it to send it home, then he always complained, oh, you take your cheese home. And then when he comes over to the house after we get home, I give him the cheese. I'll never forget one night. He's never going to, I think she'll verify this. He came over and he said, you got any cheese? I said, yeah, I've got some cheese. So he started cutting it, and he's eating the cheese, and there is poor Janie. He didn't even offer her any cheese. He just started eating the cheese. Hey, listen, if I had the time to save Chuck picking on me, I could tell you plenty about Tom Cake. But I won't. Let me just say this to you, all right? One of my favorite stage productions, plays, is Oliver. And I've seen it in London, I saw it here, but it's it's something I really enjoy seeing. And one of the main characters in Oliver is Fagin. Now here's Fagin. He's an old guy, and he's tutored these young kids to be pickpockets, right? And one of my most favorite songs in that production is Fagin singing, I'm reviewing the situation. And he goes and he keeps talking about he's going to review the situation. Here he is old, and he really needs to change direction. He needs to get in something different, and he keeps talking to himself and singing while the kids are out, picking other people's pockets. But then as he gets done with this sort of analyzation of where he is that should change, he says, I think I better think it out again. And he never makes a decision. Now, if I analyze my situation, and I have, over the years, I want to tell you this. It's an absolute miracle that Dick Rung was at Wheaton Company. There's no other way to explain it. Give me 5 minutes and I'll tell you why, all right? I went to a vocational school in Buffalo known as Burgard Vocational High School. I didn't take any college prep whatsoever. I was going to be an aircraft mechanic. When I graduated, or was about to graduate from grammar school, the thing that was coming in was aviation. So I was going to Burgard Vocational. I was going to take aircraft engines, and that was going to be my profession. And then I applied, and it wouldn't take me because it was crowded. They had too many students. But they had automobile mechanics. So I took 4 years of automobile mechanics. And then I met this gal, and she was at Gordon College. And I decided that I was led of the Lord to go to college. Now, how do you go to college with no preparation? So I applied to Gordon College, all right? And Gordon College writes back and said, hey, Dick, we'll let you come, but you have to make up 6 high school subjects to get in here, all right? And I turned to Dot. And so Dot, she's the brain of the family. She said, well, I know what we can do. We'll take correspondence courses. And Gordon said, you don't have any science yet, and I'll have to take biology, right? So we'll take it by correspondence. You don't have any algebra, so we'll take it by correspondence. You don't have any geometry. You need to take geometry, so we do that. So I want to tell you something. I made up 4 high school subjects with her help, all right? And Gordon allowed me to come lacking 2 high school subjects and said, you'll have to make them up when you get here. And if you know anything about the next thing, it's really how. I had to take a language. Now, language and Dick Rung, like trying to mix water with oil, all right? So here's a dear woman that's going to tutor me in French and tonight. So I finally, I don't know how I did it, I got through French. But there's a man at Gordon by the name of Edwin Gedney. Edwin Gedney was a dear man of God. He taught everything in the Gordon curriculum that I can think of, all right? That was the days when you're a jack of all trades, master of none. That was what I was at King's College, all right? They teach, somebody's got to teach econ. I even taught econ. It was bad for him because money. You know, everything is money. But anyway, I took the exam, a qualifying exam from this old Edwin guy, and I would pass him going to class at Wheaton, and I was shaking my boots because I didn't know if I passed this exam. So months went by, and Edward Gedney was a fantastic guy. He whistled to every class. You knew Gedney was around because he was so happy, he's whistling, but he just ignored me and run by. And he finally I couldn't stand any longer, and I tapped Gedney and I said, "Did I pass geometry?" And he said, "Oh, of course you did." You know, and here I've been fighting all the time. So I get it into Gordon on that basis, all right? And I get through Gordon, and then I decide I can go into grad school. Now, don't forget, I'm reviewing the situation. How did you get to Wheaton? All right? So I just decided I'm not going over to Gordon Divinity School. That's where they all go. You know, it's just such a staging area waiting for the Lord, the next step. I know what I'm going to do. I go to seminary, all right? A lot of my colleagues did that. I was the first one in the class to go on to Boston U. So I went over to Boston U. Guess what they tell me? See, well, further on, you can come to Boston U, but if you're going to come, you're in a non-accredited institution. Now, you're going to have to prove yourself. So the pressure's on again. So they say you talk 12 hours, and you know, if you get a B average, you can be admitted. So I'm going to Boston U, taking 12 hours. I don't even know if I'm going to get in. All right. So anyway, I finally get through Boston U on that basis. Now, where's the job? I wish Hudson were here because I think he'd get a kick out of this. Dot was Hudson Armiding's secretary, and she knew it well. I thought I knew him well because we're old Navy comrades, you know. And so I go into his office, and I said, you know, I want to get a job, and I've got this offer from King's College. And King's College, listen to this, all right? King's College offers me $1,800 for a year, and I have this, and I have that good-looking daughter of mine down there by then. All right. Now, how am I going to get by with that and feeding Judy? All right. So Hudson was sharp. He said, "How are you going to do this, Dick?" I said, "Look, I've sent letters to every Christian college I can think of, and they tell me two things. One, you got to have a PhD, and secondly, the other thing you really need to have is some kind of experience." I said, "I don't have a PhD, and I haven't taught anywhere." So he said, "How are you going to feed, Dot if you get out of there?" So I said, "Hey, how am I going to get the experience?" So down to King's College we go. All right. Now, and this gal works at Reader's Digest. She can tell you what the indebtedness was, all right? But anyway, I stay at King's College and for 8 years, and Bob Cook becomes the president. And they're crazy enough to make me dean of students, all right? So I'm the dean of students, and Bob Cook comes in my office all the time, and he'd say, he'd throw something down, not throw it down, he'd say, "Cook, see this?" I said, "Yeah." "You know, this is what they're doing out in Wheaton," all right? And they can smile. What are they doing out in Wheaton? This is what they're doing. You ought to be doing what they're out in Wheaton doing out in Wheaton. I put up with some of that for 2 years. And then this is why it's a miracle. All right. I get a call, and they say, "Would you be interested in teaching in the history department at Wheaton?" And all I've heard for the last 2 years is this is what they're doing. I'd rather go out and see what they're doing. So I packed up and I come out, and I remember Tom was.
It looks so pretty.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's the same place.
Stacy, you don't work for Marriott, do you? You're doing this.
Are
You're
you?
doing for the department.
Oh, a nice tie.
Yeah.
A new one.
This one's mine, not Carol's.
Oh, although that one we got. Oh, she's taken. We got that one for Carl too.
Oh, at the same time?
No, but we got that one for him that
Oh,
Dick
that one
wore,
that
so
wore
then I
it.
got another one for Carl that Dick wore. Carl's
so
birthday
weird.
Saturday. So we're going to have to go get something else.
Oh.
Yeah, we started over for the guy.
something. I was just seeing the tables that were here. And I called, and they said, no, there's nothing scheduled. Then I came popping in, and there were people standing around drinking coffee. I gotta quit popping in the doors.
There's no board.
Hi, Warren.
Oh,
How you doing?
okay.
Fine. Boy, look at this.
Yeah.
And you got
It was Carl.
I hear you got roasted. Oh. I feel bad. We really want to eat it.
And then we went there.
Are they real or did?
Yeah, they're right just like a baby.
Are they?
Yeah. I don't think, did you see the Hussein cards?
Chuck, I read your letter. He hasn't had a chance to get to read your letter.
I had two wins.
Down.
Oh,
Olympia. How you feeling? Good?
Great.
So am I.
Here, can I do this?
But this guy, he was Thursday. They had a conversation.
Dad won't get a chance to eat anything.
Oh, that's gone.
What do we live in But first 6 years we lived in Barcelona.
Okay.
No, I'm not going to. I wish I was.
You're going to 2 years.
Oh, that's been there 3 years.
No, it's just that the
Anytime I get a split,
Get over here, Judy. That Rick takes some of it.
Yeah, here.
Hey, see you. Hey, how are you?
Hey, Jude. Jude. It won't stop in my... Let's get a close-up. Smile, Jude. Come on, Jude. Smile, Jude. There you go.
I'm going to move out of range.
Oh, yeah, the rest of the
I read it.
I did. Put your name on it.
No, I haven't.
But you can write your own.
Are you like putting in a lot of hours, or?
Yeah.
Are you working on publishing stuff?
No, I'm in computer. Well, not entry, it's more. Well, yes, we also do laser printing, microfiche, all sorts of stuff for banks. I rather survive. Dude, you would too. No, I wouldn't. Your height. Okay, should I stop, dude? Boy.
Wise guy. Go ahead.
We should.
Hang around these days.
David, you have one of those things? No?
Oh, I did it.
You know,
Good.
Well, you might have. Your timing's great.
this has been 2 weeks later. Now that I've been here back.
Well, this was
2 weeks or sooner, they say. So, yeah.
Someday I'll get that.
You're going to be around next
My mother's very good.
Oh, so you're you got a long-lived mother.
I would love
this is very area.
That one is, she has to pull out for other clients. We're hoping to soup on what you know that.
On the way back from class.
On the block?
No, it's on the way back from class.
But we didn't get
You know,
Get a close-up of her cake.
And this that we're doing here is this white cake for Chuck.
What has he done to the house?
Oh my goodness.
Ruthie's in the way.
Thank you.
Better than my clothes.
What is that?
I had Hawaiian band.
When you retire, I'm
Hawaiian. That's Hawaiian.
They're going to include...
That's just supposed, yeah, you know. I know regular was 3 to 5.
earthquakes are going to be out where he is.
Yes. Such a long visit.
Are you going down?
I feel like I had
I'll know, right?
You get good luck.
Oh, yeah. Well, like I said, because we changed the car and walking out of the
Jane, of course, parked probably at College of DuPage. She said it was that's because she believed their plans were permanent. Poor thing. She's such a go-along kind of person. Oh, it's my mother. I would have parked on the sidewalk. What do I care? You know, I'm not going to
Rick wants to take it. I'll be in, right? See you later, Rick. I'm with you. Yes.
Bye, Jane.
See you guys.
I'll come again. Okay. Good to meet you.
Thanks. Bye now. At any rate, we were, I was looking for a word.
No.
I'll grab it. At any rate, no word. Hey.
You always do.
You never realized it, right?
Thank you.
What about me?
You might talk there.
Well, I love you. I know you are, yeah, but it's good we have
Buy something.
your dimension too.
Yeah, that's true.
Nobody will replace it.
What are you and Rick doing? Oh, sure. What are those cookies or brownies over there like?
They're too rich, Mom.
Sometimes you go through life.
But the youngest one now is 6.
I let her know the whole thing. She took it down there and got her all lined up in her neck. That's long. And I think normally it would have taken probably
I'm getting the girls too, Jude.
well,
she worked about 3 days.
Is that okay?
On that, and she did a very good job. But I mean, she did every little.
By the hour.
Yeah, by the hour. See, that's where we made our mistakes. And anyway, I mean, she was. I mean, we got her clean.
That's why when I wallpaper, I charge by the job. And then you can go as slow as you want.
Yeah.
You don't feel pressure.
Yeah, that's good.
You go fast.
And,